Hi, this is Mr. Word. I'm going to do numbers 18 and 19 from the worksheet. Number 19 I did in class, but I'm going to go ahead and do them again. So number 18 and 19 share the characteristic that none of the variables are isolated and all of the variables have some stuff around them, some coefficients that are not 1. So it makes it a little more complicated to isolate things. I'm going to start with number 18. My first step is to figure out which variable in which equation to isolate. If I isolate the x here in the negative 7x part here, I'm going to end up with an expression that involves sevenths, and I don't want to do that if I can avoid it. So I'm going to check this one. This one would have me ending up with I'll end up with some sort of negative 7/8 x, and I'll end up with negative 5/8. So 7/8. This will end up being y equals 7/8 x minus 5/8. I can work with that, but it's not great. This one, I'd be dividing things by 6, and I can tell that even though the 6 will reduce, I'll still end up with thirds. So let's see if I can avoid that. If I use this, though, this negative 2x, that should be reasonably easy to isolate. So I'm going to isolate that. So I copy that and give myself a little space. So I'm going to subtract 6y from both sides. So I end up with minus 6y plus 6. Then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So this just becomes x. Divide negative 6 by negative 2. I end up with 3. And 6 divided by negative 2 is minus 3. Now I have an expression I can plug into the other equation. I will copy that equation, and I will replace x with that expression. Okay, so now I have an equation that's just in terms of y, so I can start, and I don't end up with any fractions at all by choosing this. So I'm going to simplify things, distribute the negative 7, that becomes negative 21y. Negative 7 times 3y is negative 21y. And then negative 7 times negative 3 is plus 21 plus 8y equals negative 5. Then I'm going to combine like terms. Negative 21y and 8y is going to be negative 13y. I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. So I'll end up with negative 5 minus 21, which is negative 26. And then I'm going to factor out negative 13 from both sides. I divide both sides by negative 13. Y equals negative 26 divided by negative 13, or 2. And now I take that 2, I'm going to go back and plug it into this expression. So I can find out x. X equals 3 times 2 minus 3 equals 6 minus 3 equals 3. So my solution is x equals 3 and y equals 2. So x, comma, 2 is my solution, and I've solved that system. Now I'm going to deal with the harder one. The harder one is number 19. Number 19, again, I look at my coefficients. 5 I could work, negative 5 I could work with. I could work with fifths. Eighths I could work with. Sevenths, if I can avoid, I will avoid. Halves are not so bad. So I'm going to work with the halves. So I'm going to copy this one and isolate the x. So to isolate the x, I add 7y to both sides. And I go over here, and 7y now minus 17. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So x will equal 7 over 2y minus 17 over 2. Now I take this, and I'm going to copy that in and replace x in the other equation with that. So let me copy the other equation. Copy that other equation. Now I take this expression This is an expression for x, so x gets substituted. I substitute for x with that expression, and now I'm going to start simplifying. And in A block, I didn't use this trick, so I'm going to use this trick that I used in B block to show you how to deal with it. So I'm going to do negative 5 times 7 halves y, so I get negative 35 over 2 y, and negative 5 times negative 17 is positive 85, so it's going to be plus 85 over 2. And you notice I've got some halves. So why not turn everything into halves? So I've got this negative 8y. I'm going to turn that into negative 16 over 2y. And 17, I could express as 34 over 2. And now you notice everything is over 2. Once I've got everything over 2, I can get rid of all those denominators by just multiplying the whole thing by 2. I get negative 35y plus 85 minus 16y equals 34. And I put that all together. Negative 35 plus negative 61 is negative 51y. And then I subtract 85 from both sides. I get 34 minus 85, which is negative 51. And so y has to be 1. Oops, not y. Y has to be 1. I go back and I plug in y equals 1 here. Actually, here. So I got basically 7 halves minus 17 halves. So x will equal negative 10 over 2, which equals negative 5. And so my solution is negative 5 comma 1. And I